What's up, hobby friends? My name is Casey, and this is eBay Miniature Rescues. This week, we're going to try and rescue a pretty nasty model. Let's see what happens. First things first, I'm going to grab out a handful of models and we're just going to see how things go. Just look at this guy. I can barely even tell what this is. I'll be throwing this guy straight into a bath of LA's Totally Awesome in my ultrasonic jewelry cleaner in order to clean off the paint. He ended up needing 2 cycles, but he came out looking fresh and ready to go. The base was particularly covered in stuff. I swapped it out for a different base of the same size, and I'll quickly knock out the hole on the base for the model to fit into. Leaving just a little bit of a gap, I'll cover the base in PVA and beach sand, wait for that to dry, and prime the model black. Huh. Something's in the mail. So a couple of videos ago, or maybe even the last one, I got a new sonic cleaner and it was pretty much just garbage. It didn't work properly, it made a horrible noise, and it smelled like electrical fire. The one I got today is really nice. It actually works really well and I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, it's a nice upgrade from the old one. This is exactly what I was hoping for. A larger vat, more control over the time and heat, and clean models. Weirdly though, it cleaned 2 models incredibly well, but for some reason the paint wasn't coming off of the other ones. I'll have to do a little more testing later. Alright, so now it's time to paint this awesome looking model. I'm pretty excited for this one. I didn't even know what it was before, and you know, it's looking like it's going to turn out pretty good, you know, in my head. So I primed this model black and then did a zenithal highlight over the top with white ink. Because that zenithal gave us lights and shadows, we can use a contrast paint over the top of that to give us a base coat and preserve those gradients. I decided to mix it up and throw in some color shifting paint. This is a green to blue shift from Turbo Dork. Really nice paint that is always worth having around. Over the green, it just gives a little more interest and not something you see on every model. I'm not sure if it really makes the biggest difference in the end, but it's a nice experiment to see what happens just in case I want to get this effect on another model. A quick base coat of brown for the cloak. A dark bronze for the trim to give the armor a little more contrast. I'll also use this color on the weapon head. Might as well be consistent with the metal since there isn't that much. I start with a basic light skin tone and lightly coat the head. I also painted in the tubing, which really got me thinking about this model. There are fleshy tubes all over this model, just like all of the Deathguard we've been painting. This model might actually fit into that army. I'll need to do some digging, but let's finish painting him first. I mixed black and purple together for the pelt. I wanted something a little different that could potentially also fit into my existing Deathguard army. Now I'm really committing to just painting him that way and figuring it out later. Flesh shade for all of the skin tones. This brings in some warmth and good contrast with the greens. Finally, a dark wash watered down and pushed into the recesses in the armor. I want to get a liner in there before we start highlighting. An oil wash would have been perfect, but I'm also trying to get this guy done right now, and I don't really want to wait for an oil wash to dry. I love this part of the process. It's where the boring work is done. The colors are blocked in, and it's time to start bringing out the real look of this model. Let's take a closer look at the face. I'm going from a pretty light skin tone to almost an ivory, mixing in a little more with each pass. One of the things that took me a while to really get hold of when highlighting like this was to go brighter than I thought was needed. So in most paint ranges, there are skin tones for base coating, maybe 1 or 2 for highlighting, and that's usually it. Those systems look fine, but in order to really bring in contrast and color, you need to make the highlights brighter and the shadows darker. I introduce an off-white to my skin tones for chaos models or not fully alive-ish type models. This is a great way to bring in brightness and desaturation to the skin. Putting some reddish purple into the shadows, just lightly glazing that in, will bring in color to the face, really selling it, and giving a ton more contrast. This is my go-to for faces, and it's been really working for me. Hopefully, there's something of a takeaway for you, and you can push your faces to a new place. Next up, I'm going to bring in some lighter green and glaze that into the paneling, just on the upper half of the panels or directly in the middle if they are smaller. This is really going to bring that light up towards the face and create a frame for the head. Last but not least, a quick plasma glow on the gun, and that pretty much wraps this guy up. I gotta say, this is probably one of my more favorite models that I've painted in quite some time. I don't know what it is, if it's just seeing the before and after, or, just that green that kind of always gets me, but I'm pretty happy with this model, and I think that if there is room in the Deathguard army, this would be a pretty fun model to play. He's chaotic, he's got the fleshy tube bits, so I think he fits in rather well. And because he's got a little bit of a different paint scheme, he can still stand out as kind of a hero model. So I think that's going to work, and I'm happier than I thought I'd be. Alright, so welcome to day 2. Now I have a couple of ideas. I want to try and knock out a bunch of models all at once, kind of assembly line some of the new Blight Lords, that kind of thing. I don't have a lot of time to work today, but I did want to go over what the model we painted yesterday is basically supposed to be for. So let's take a look in the book, and I've got another model to show along with that, so let's check it out. So I've got the finished model right here. So this is still a chaos something or other, and I decided to just paint it the same way as the rest of my Deathguard army because I think we can still use this. I also have this guy, which, if you may remember, was a conversion from a putrid Blight King from AOS to basically a Terminator or something like that. And the goal is to take these two models and to figure out where they can go in this army. Now specifically, this is the page that I've been looking at because you have a Deathguard Chaos Lord and a Deathguard Chaos Lord in Terminator armor. This is kind of the plan right now. So as far as a regular Deathguard Chaos Lord, this model makes sense because he's not technically in any kind of power armor. You know, he seems to fit this profile really well. Now, obviously from the weapons, these don't match, but you go into the war gear options, you can swap out for a power maul, which is basically what that is. You can switch out for a plasma pistol. That's what he's got. So for being a Black Reach model, I think this happened to just fit perfectly into this army. Now I don't know if I'm going to use this, but it seemed like a cool way to just, you know, paint this up in kind of a different way and fit it into this army. It just happens to fit nicely. The same thing goes for this model. There's not much difference between these two profiles, and you can take these weapons. So all in all, this pretty much fits. And when it comes down to it, he's the same size as one of these Terminators. He's on the same size base and everything, so I think this is going to work. So like I said, I didn't have much for day 2. Wanted to get a lot of that Blight Lord stuff prepped. I actually did all of the Plague Marines, have all the metallics down, everything else, and it's ready for the weathering coats to go on. So we're going to kind of pick up where that left off next time and get into some other pretty cool stuff. So thank you again for joining me on another miniature rescue. If you like something about this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing, as it really helps out the channel. Once again, I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video.